All right, boss.
Okay. Debbie, you ready? Okay, I'd like to call the meeting for December 3rd to order. We have roll call, please. Here. Here.
Here.
You can advise the board on that.
Here. Along with my fellow commissioners, we welcome you to this
I can
evening's
mention that I presented.
harbor meeting. Today's date is December 3rd, 2014.
There shouldn't be a problem.
And I have some public comment slips. First one is Tim West. Please come forward. And Mr. West, the policy is you have 3 minutes to speak. And the Deputy Secretary will announce the 30 minutes prior to the 3 minutes expiration. 30 seconds, I'm sorry.
Yeah, it won't take that long. I don't really have a speech or anything, but I had nothing written. But 3 things I just want to say is congratulations to the board. I think the new blood coming in and the people who are holding their seats, I think it's a good thing for our community to have a little shake-up, because you guys had kind of a negative thing going, especially in the papers and blah, 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 because there's so much shake-up. I think you guys are on a good path, and I just want to say congratulations to all you guys. Second thing, jetty erosion. I surf a lot, born and raised here, and I was surfing the jetty today at Miramar. There's a big surge, and when there's a big storm, a south surge comes in rather than a refraction, like you guys talk about for dredging the sand out. Well, it's so bad right now. I really think if you guys can make it down there, your jaw will drop, because you can't even walk down to the beach right now unless you jump 4 feet. And that, if this continues for 2 more days, I think that the highway literally will be on the verge of that cliff. So go take a look at it if you can. Third thing, this lot for sale. I live above the post office. I see this thing every day. I really just think that if it's the benefit of the community, whatever it is, that's going to be a positive impact for everybody, no matter what their view of what it should be. So my 10 cents is think about community, because it's going to be there forever. It's going to be a foundation. You know, you're going to have sewer hookups. You're going to have the whole nine. So if you think community and for the benefit of the community, you don't want somebody coming from over the hill and building a 4-story apartment complex. It's going to block the view. In my opinion, I think that would be a negative. And I know most of the community feels that way. So just make a wise choice to make everybody happy, because I think you guys are on a good path, and I just want to say thumbs up. Thank you.
All right, you're welcome. Okay. I misspoke. The other public comment was changed to another agenda item, so that's it for the public comment period. And so now we can move on to staff recognition.
Yes, I have one, Mr. President. As this is my apparently last Harbor Commission meeting before my retirement, I just want to say a word through this mechanism of Harbor Commission meeting to recognize the entire staff of the Harbor District. I can't speak highly enough of working with this group of men and women for the last 17 plus years. The Harbor Patrol is the public face of the Harbor District. They are backed up solidly and consistently by our administrative and finance unit, without whom also things couldn't happen for various reasons. I won't go into details unless you ask me to, but briefly I just want to extend my thanks, and I feel honored to have been able to serve with this crew of men and women for the Harbor District. And I wish them well, and happy holidays and happy New Year.
Any other staff recognition? No? Okay. Consent calendar, we have 4 items on the consent calendar.
Mr. President, before we begin on the consent calendar, I'd like to ask to have item number 3 taken off the consent and put on the regular agenda. And I would move on items 1, 2, and 4.
Second. Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve items 1, 2, and 4, and to move item number 3 to new business. Any discussions, questions? All those in, or roll call, please.
Commissioner Bernardo?
Aye.
Commissioner Brennan? Commissioner Holsinger?
Aye.
Commissioner Tucker?
Aye.
President Carabano?
Aye. Great, thank you. Okay.
Mr. President, then on the new business, item number 3, the item calls for reinstate January 7, 2015 Board of Harbor Commissioners regular meeting. I'd like to speak against doing that. It's been over a month, 6 weeks since we've canceled the second meeting in December and the first meeting in January, which has pretty much been our history for the 16 years that I've served here. I know staff and others have made plans for the holiday. I see no need to reinstate the meeting for January 7th. If the new board, when constituted January 5th, wishes to do so, that would be their business. But I would urge a no vote on item number 3.
Do we have a second?
A second for item 3?
I didn't make a motion, but I
Oh, I'm
will.
sorry.
I would move not to allow item number 3.
I think we just need to have it not get a majority to pass.
Well, I think if we vote on it, at least it's done.
Okay.
Is that a second?
Sure, second.
We have a motion and a second for, not to have reinstated the January 7th board meeting. Any questions, discussions? We have roll call, please.
Commissioner Bernardo?
Aye.
Commissioner Brennan? Commissioner Holsinger?
Aye.
Commissioner Tucker?
Aye.
President Carabano?
Aye. The motion carries. Okay, item number 5 is a proclamation for outgoing General Manager Peter Grinnell. And I have before me, and in your packets, you can find a proclamation, which I would like to read into the record. Whereas Peter began full-time employment with the San Mateo County Harbor District on May 12, 1997. And whereas during our 17.5 years of dedicated service, Peter met all challenges head-on and without hesitation. And whereas Peter has served the district, its governing board, staff, and public with dedication and good humor. And whereas Peter brought to the Harbor District's 13.5 years of work experience, the California State Coastal Conservancy, and brought valuable insight into conserving our beautiful California coastline. And whereas during his tenure at the San Mateo County Harbor District, Grinnell accomplished many things, such as helping to bring the San Francisco Bay Ferry Terminal to South City at Oyster Point Marina, as well as providing a link between the existing Bay Trail on the north side of Oyster Point and the south side, thus completing the Bay Trail around the perimeter of Oyster Point Marina. He was instrumental in obtaining grants totaling over
I think it's 3 million.
3 million, I'm sorry,
$3,700,000.
$3.788 million for facilities improvements at Pillar Point Harbor and Oyster Point Marina, including rebuilding docks and boat launch ramps and improving access to the Oyster Point Marina fishing pier. And whereas Peter, through hard work and perseverance, worked with Pillar Point Harbor fishermen to find and create the fishing and sanctuary interpretive signs at Pillar Point Harbor that provide information on trawl fisheries, charter boats, Dungeness crab fisheries, hook and line fisheries, purse seine fisheries, and the marine sanctuary. Peter commissioned a new harbor patrol vessel at Pillar Point Harbor. And whereas Peter acted as representative for the San Mateo County Harbor District on the board of the California Marine Affairs and Navigation Conference, an advocacy nonprofit organization for California ports and harbors, as alternate member for the maritime activities on the advisory council of the Gulf of the Farallones National Marine Sanctuary, as harbors representative of the Monterey Bay National Marine Sanctuary's advisory council, and represented the district and the California Maritime Infrastructure Authority and Bank. Therefore, be it known that the San Mateo County Board of Harbor District Commission hereby extends its best wishes to Peter Grinnell upon the occasion of his retirement on December 30th, 2014, following over 17 years of faithful and dedicated service on behalf of the Oyster Point Marina Park, Polar Point Harbor, the County of San Mateo, the boating public, and the community and staff of the San Mateo County Harbor District, and further extends its sincere best wishes for a rewarding and fulfilling future.
So moved on the resolution.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve this proclamation for Peter Grinnell.
I have a comment.
Okay.
So I noticed on here that it mentions the California Maritime Infrastructure Bank and Authority. And I was wondering, who wrote this? Was this written by Mr. Grinnell, or was this written by the board president?
Written by staff.
By,
That is, he did act as representative for the harbor district on that board.
I just think it's really odd that that's included, given the fact that the San Mateo County District Attorney is currently investigating the Harbor District in relation to the California Maritime Infrastructure Bank and Authority. They still have an open investigation. It just seems odd that this is included in this proclamation. So I just wanted to raise that concern. That's all, thank you.
Is there a motion on the floor?
There is a motion. Any further discussion, questions? Could I have a roll call, please?
Commissioner Bernardo?
Aye.
Commissioner Brennan?
No,
Commissioner Holsinger?
Aye.
Commissioner Tucker?
Aye.
President Carvalho?
Aye. The motion carries, and we hereby have a proclamation for our general manager. Thank you, Mr. Grinnell. Item number 6, District Annual Financial Statement Independent Auditors Report. Mr. Doyle, would you like to introduce this?
First meeting of all. And we have the annual financial statements. We worked with our auditors, JJ CPA, and they've been any questions.
Did you have a presentation you wanted to make?
I'm basically here just to answer questions. I can introduce the financials. So this is the annual financial statements and communications letter that's being presented to the commission. In our communications letter, we don't have any internal control findings. We do have one informational comment regarding the new pension plan standards that go into effect for next fiscal year. Primarily because that number, the unfunded liability, is going to be shown in the statement of net position. It's going to need additional audit procedures in order to get the report out in a timely manner. So potentially, the report could be delayed next year because of the actuarial study that needs to be performed on the district's pension plan obligations. That standard is a pretty comprehensive standard. It's not a funding standard, which is basically what the issue is with pension plans in the public sector. It's an accounting and financial reporting standard. It's moving the unfunded liability into the financial statements, and it is actuarially valued at a given point in time. That's the communications letter. The financial statements were pretty standard financial information. I've seen a lot of information regarding, the financial position of the district. One of the things that you look at for solvency as far as the district is concerned is what the working capital is. And the district has approximately $10 million in working capital, which indicates that there's enough to pay your current bills on an ongoing basis and fund operations. So you may not actually have the reserves set aside, but as long as the working capital is there, you can fund your operation. The other thing I wanted to note is last year, I believe it was Commissioner Bernardo had asked about a schedule of debt service coverage, and that's actually one of our working papers, so I kind of cleaned it up. And I hope I have enough copies of the schedule so that the commission can take a look at and see the coverage ratios on the debt on the loan from the California Division of Boating and Waterways. And your coverage ratio is approximately 2, so which means it's 200% coverage of the payments. And potentially is why you were able to make the extra payment this last year. Other than that, if anybody has any questions, I'd be glad to.
Mr. President, before they ask the questions, let me put a motion on the floor. Move to accept the financial statement and the independent auditor's report. I would so move.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the auditor's report. Any questions, discussions?
I have some questions.
Please.
So the board received a letter that's, I don't know, marked confidential. I couldn't tell why that was the case. Is there some reason why this letter was confidential that I should know about?
Mark it confidential.
You don't know?
I
It's
don't
your
know why.
letter, you wrote it.
Yeah, but I didn't mark it confidential.
November 24th, 2014, to the Board of Commissioners. So why is this marked confidential?
Normally, I don't know the answer to that, we can double check with Deborah, but I believe that particular letter has always been a confidential letter, because it's not part of this package, it's just.
So there's a statement in the letter at the bottom of the next to last page that indicates the report's intended solely for the information use of the Board of Commissioners and the management of the district. Not intended to be or should not be used by any. So basically, that's why it's marked confidential, is because it's a communications to the board from the auditor that, potentially could expose the district to information that they may want to not make public record. Since it is part of the public record, then it's as confidential as that goes.
So what does that mean? It is part of the public?
It's not part of the.
So if it's not, then it's communicating to you the results of our audit.
Okay. So there was a mention of it says, we requested certain written representations from management which are included in a separate letter dated November 24th, 2014. That was a little confusing because this letter has the same date. So that was a different letter?
Yes, that's a letter that management sends to us that represents the, everything. They're taking responsibility for the financial statements and the internal control structure, and also that everything that they disclose everything to us in order for us to do our work.
Okay, so just so I understand, I wasn't sure if that was a letter that you guys sent to the staff or if it was a letter from the staff to you?
It's a letter from the staff to us, from
And
management to us.
Okay, so they sent you that letter the same day that you sent the board this letter?
They're making representations as of the date of our audit report, because there could be events that occurred from the date of our field work to the date of when we release the report that need to go in the financial statements. And so basically they're saying that everything's included that should be included as of that November 24th date.
Okay, thank you for explaining that. It was unclear to me. And then I think it would be helpful if, going forward, if when we got the audit report, we actually had like a PowerPoint presentation so that the public and the board could look at some of the charts and things that you included in the audit. I think that would be helpful information for everyone, because this, it's our audit. But we don't have that today, so.
Well, the financial statements aren't a representation of the auditor, they're a representation of management. So management would present that on a PowerPoint.
So then that comment is to the staff. And because there's just a lot here, and like I need help understanding it, and I feel like I should be getting more help from the staff with that. But anyway, with regard to the change that we were alerted to on page 15 of 39, could you explain to me, or maybe the staff could explain to me, there was a cash flow item at the very top of page 15 of 39, and it says cash flows have increased approximately $2,286,000, sorry, $2,286,000, wait a minute. What am I looking at?
$2,286,551.
Thank you. But there's been a change.
Okay, so let me explain, it's not really a change, there's a typo error in this cash flow in the written part. Where the numbers are, the number has always been $695,785. So that number has always stayed the same. When this was written, the number was pulled from the wrong section. But if you look back on page
14.
19 of 39, let's see, down, net increase in cash and cash equivalents, it's kind of in the middle of the page.
Oh, yes, thank you.
Yeah, that number has not changed at all. So that number there should have been what was here all along. But when it was typed up, the number was pulled from the wrong section. So,
Okay,
yeah,
okay,
so that's all. The numbers weren't,
yeah, okay, I see.
No calculations or changes, the number was just pulled from the wrong place
Okay.
when that was typed.
So do you have any recommendations for the board about things we could do to improve our financial situation?
It's kind of a broad question. With regards to financing district activities, I need a little bit more of an understanding of what the question is.
Well, there's been a lot of concerns about the level of spending and the amount of money the district has, and potentially not being able to meet all of our obligations at some point in the future, and projections, that sort of thing. Do you have any sort of
Well,
guidelines?
I can't give you a crystal ball look at what I think the future's going to bring. The way that you manage, from a board perspective, it would be anything that came to you from for projects and those types of things that are going to create additional financing in addition to all the debt that you've already incurred. So that, allows you to move on and improve your infrastructure and beautify the district and make it better for the public. But part of the financing mechanisms that you use, and most of the debt that the district has incurred is all California boarding and waterway loans. And so by consolidating that debt into one loan, you've essentially established a financing mechanism to pay off the debt in the future. So basically what I'm saying is that you have the coverage for the debt, you have the ability to repay it already. There's no real need to focus on not being able to make it day to day. So from an operating standpoint, that's why I pointed you to working capital. Working capital tells you if, and what working capital is it's current assets less your current liabilities. So if you're looking at your current assets, that's your cash and your receivables and those things that you're going to turn into cash in a quick period. And those are enough to cover your current liabilities, which are your payables, like your payroll and your bills. Then on an operating basis, you have enough to turn over the cash to pay for operations to go for like 3 or 4 or 6 or 9 months, and until you get more money in to replace your cash. So on a current basis, you're fine. And as an auditor, what I would look at is if you don't have the working capital, you're going to go broke. Your liability, current liabilities are more than your current assets, so you're not going to be able to pay those current liabilities now. So you don't have the money to spend, so that would make the district go bankrupt. So you're not in that position where you need to focus on.
Well, I have a question about that. My understanding is that for a number of years, we've been spending more money than we have, meaning that we've been dipping into reserves to make it. According to our finance director, I think she said it was 20 or 30% for our last budget process. So given that that's been going on for some time, it would indicate that we are spending more than we are bringing in property tax money, which has been over 50% of our budget, and then the money that we are earning from, our tenants and whatnot. So with that situation in mind, I mean, that doesn't seem like that would be sustainable forever.
Well, it's not if you're relying specifically on property taxes. If you have the other operating revenues to help support it, so this is more of a basic understanding of how what the property taxes are used for, and a lot you couldn't charge your birth rentals to the point to pay for infrastructure improvement and maintenance and so forth. So that's what the property tax is used for. The other thing is too is the loans are also secured by the property tax, and the reason is because that's your largest revenue source. So your creditors are going to want to secure the largest revenue source so that they get paid back. So it's not an issue. You're talking more from a budgetary standpoint, which is an estimate of what you're going to spend and not what you actually may spend during the year. The other aspect of the budget that you have that you don't have shown in
But wait, I
this.
have a question about that. I mean, it's not just the budget. We actually have been spending like 30% more than we bring in. It's not just I realize what you mean by, that budget being a projection, but if you look at the audits that you've done and other auditors have done, you go through the audits, you'll find that we actually have been spending down reserves to make it to the tune of like 20 to 30% every year for, the last decade. So how long can we keep doing that? Or is that something that I should be asking the finance director?
That's more of an operational question than it is an audit question. Because really you should, as part of any project or any major project that the district does, you should have some forecast or projection as to how that's going to affect you operationally. And that type of information is more of a specific type of financial type of report, like a quarterly report that the board would get, that it would be similar to the financials in the audit report, but it may be more detailed, so that you can make decisions on whether to go forward with the project. And that's not something that I can answer because I'm not on the operations side.
I see, thank you. And then, just to clarify for the board and the public, when you're doing the audit, you're not actually auditing our internal controls or our internal processes, correct?
We look at internal control from the standpoint of how do you get to these numbers. So we don't look at all of your operational controls and all of those and determine if those are effective. We look at the controls that are in place to produce the financial statements, and that's what we do.
Thank you. And then just the last question, and this might be for the staff. I noticed there was some mention in here about our legal costs going up. Could you guys comment on that? I saw that in here somewhere. It says, well, it talks about how, it also talks about the strategic plan and that costing a lot. I don't know where I saw it.
I would think, and David could probably key in a little bit as well as Joe, a lot of the times I think of the auditor was that big, what I would call big ticket items, and how those affect our operating expenses and our, what's going on.
I think what the commissioner is referring to is the discussion, in the management discussions and analysis, there's a statement, I remember seeing it too. There was a statement about legal costs, and this is prepared by staff, so.
Right, okay. Who prepared this document?
The finance.
David, do you know where that is in here?
I'm looking for it. I think I do know which section, I believe.
Page
I saw
13
that.
of 39.
I was trying to see which page.
Oh.
I think it's 13 of 39 in the middle. The page 13 of 39 in the middle of the page.
So it says Harbor Commission operating expenses increased due to legal costs, but total costs are less than 2013 because the majority of the election expenses were expensed in 2013. Administration expenses and Oyster Point Marina expenses remain flat, so on and so forth. So it does comment on that.
Right, so this summary that's down here will try to explain the numbers in the operating, in the other section.
Does it,
So there's always a summary that's gonna try to explain why the numbers read different from one year to the next.
so it's explaining that the legal costs went up, but the legal costs aren't itemized in this little
Well, it
pie
says-
chart?
Right, so if you look here under Harbor Commissioners, the cost for 2014 was $493,225, and in 2013 was $529,589, so it was a decrease of $36,000. So it says the harbor, so that means that the operating increased due to legal costs, but the total costs are less because of the election expenses. So it's kind of trying to explain the numbers.
I see, okay. And then the last thing I had was, it says contractual services have nearly doubled due to 651,000, I'm rounding off, due to increased legal costs, this is, sorry, page 8, strategic planning and facility conditions survey and study. So I'm just pointing that out, that's all. That's all I have.
I just have one question. Mr. Arch, if we could just simplify it and put it in plain English, would you say that from your perspective as the auditor, based upon the information you've seen, from your perspective, the district is currently in good financial shape?
You're asking me to give
From your perspective?
From my perspective, as of a point in time, you're in good financial position.
All right, thank you.
Are you looking for a soundbite?
Okay, okay, thank you. We have one public comment from Mr. John Olam.
Oh, thanks. I didn't say very good. It's mostly just a question.
No, if
Okay,
you can,
Mateo.
yeah.
You want to sit down? Come back. These are multiple questions about the financial condition of the district. And this is probably information that all the new commissioners really need to pay attention to, because either I've got it wrong and you're not in big trouble, or you are in big trouble. And this gentleman, I've checked out your credentials. You know what you're talking about when it comes to accounting. There's no doubt about it. Yeah. Not you, no. Okay, so there's this, I'm looking at the budget presentation from April, when Ms. Galarza made some comments about structural deficits, or what we interpret to be structural deficits. And we've got graphs and that the staff put together, and they pretty much show a line going down as far as cash reserves. And it's explained that these cash reserves are going down because they're spending about 30% more on your expenses than you take in both tax revenue and operational revenue. So all the money you got coming in is only covering 70% of what you're spending. Now, there is a lot of money in the bank. A lot of it's committed. And I was mentioned, what happens when an entity has less assets than liabilities. Can anybody provide, saying nothing changes, so we got a baseline, when will we run out of money? Because it's intuitive to everybody here that if you're spending 30% more than you're taking in, that you can spend all your credit cards, and you can spend the kids' inheritance, and you can spend their education, and you can spend your retirement, and you can mortgage the house. But if you continue to run 30% deficit, what inevitably is going to happen? Okay, that's one question I want to answer. And then the other would be is, there's a page of this budget thing that was just presented in April. There is a page that talks about future termination benefit liabilities. And that number right now is somewhere around 2.9, 3 or 4 million dollars, so 3.59 million. I have a hard time reading the graph. Got the wrong glasses tonight. But this number is going up at a pretty good clip. There's two lines on there. One that shows the line that goes up if we don't give anybody a raise. And then there's the line that shows what happens if everybody gets a 3% raise every year. And I believe that's the standard raise that people get around here is 3%. Whether they deserve it or not, that's not what I'm questioning. What I'm saying is you got a graph that shows what's going to happen if you have a 3% raise. This money has got to come from somewhere. It's already been talked about spending that money to help finance that 30% deficit. So can you really help the commissioners that are coming on board really understand the direness of the situation that they're facing so they can use that to influence their decisions, or explain to them why I just don't get it? Thank you.
Okay, any other questions?
Call the question.
We have a caller. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Barretto?
Aye.
Commissioner Brennan?
Aye.
Commissioner Wolfinger?
Aye.
Commissioner Tucker?
Aye.
President Karloff?
Aye. Thank you. Okay, item number 7, the bills and claims. You have a report from the treasurer.
Yes. President Paravano and members of the commission, I've reviewed the bills and claims, and they are in order for your approval in the amount of $153,442.34.
I'll second the motion.
Oh, excuse me, and hand checks in the amount of $59,493.85.
I'll still second the motion.
Thank you.
Okay, we have a motion, and a second to approve the bills and claims. Item number 7, any questions, discussion?
I have a comment.
Please.
So I just wanted to point out that we have a bill here from Cox, Wooten, Lerner, Griffin, Hansen. Is that the maritime attorney?
Yes.
Okay. And I just wanted to point out that we have a bill for $1,296.50. We haven't gotten an update on what in the world they're doing for us in some time. It'd be nice to find out. And then we also have a bill from Hanson Bridget, which is our general counsel attorney, for $14,958. And I also wanted to point out that we're paying rent in South San Francisco for our administrative office of $7,430.86 a month. So just wanted to mention that, that's all. And I'm not gonna vote to approve these bills and claims just solely because I haven't had an opportunity to review them. Thank you.
Okay, roll call, please.
Commissioner Barone?
Aye.
Commissioner Brennan?
No.
Commissioner Westner?
Aye.
Commissioner Tucker?
Aye.
President Carolano?
Aye, the motion carries. Item number 8, authorization to pay bills and claims occurring between December 4th and January 20th, 2015, in an amount not to exceed $650,000.
So moved.
Second.
A motion and second to approve item number 8. Any questions, discussion? Roll call, please.
Commissioner Barone?
Aye.
Commissioner Brennan?
No.
Commissioner Westner?
Aye.
Commissioner Tucker?
Aye.
President Carolano?
Aye. The motion carries. Item number 9 will be presented by Mr. Miller, policy, on drafting a policy on confidential communications between attorney-client.
Good evening, Commissioners. So you'll recall a month ago, I, at your request, brought to you a policy on prohibiting disclosure of confidential communications, and I had 2 central questions that needed some direction. One was whether you wanted the policy to apply to attorney-client privileged communications only, or whether you also were interested in a policy that impacted confidential communications also resulting from the Brown Act closed session communications. And the second issue was whether you wanted a policy that included specific procedures that would apply when there was an accusation of a prohibited disclosure, or whether you wanted a policy that was broad and would apply procedures on a case-by-case basis. And I believe it was Commissioner Tucker who asked that I bring back to you this evening a policy that, rather than answering those 2 questions one way or the other, provided alternatives for you to consider in both situations. And so you'll see in your packet a policy that is has in brackets language in the beginning that you could choose, should you choose to adopt the policy at all, that you could choose that would apply to Brown Act confidential communications. And then the other difference from last time is there's a section D called procedures that would be in totality optional, but even within those optional procedures there are some bracketed choices for you to discuss and ask questions of me as you like. And I think I'm happy to talk you through those, or I'm happy just to pause here and take questions as you see fit.
Any questions on this item?
Mr. President, members of the commission, I have no questions except a statement. And I think this is all encompassing, and I can appreciate it, and I appreciate the work that our attorney did. I think this is an item that I would just as soon leave for the incoming commission to make that determination on.
Commissioner Bernardo?
Yeah, I have kind of just a general question on this, and that is, first of all, thank you for taking the time to prepare this document. But for me, I understand sort of what the approach is on this with regards to confidential communications, but I mean, for me, it's kind of basic. It's like if you violate confidentiality, I mean, there are certain aspects of illegality to it. So it's sort of like, I don't know why we would need to create a policy on things that are illegal already. I mean, that's kind of where I'm coming from. It's like, you know, if things are discussed in, you know, let's say, closed session, you can't say them. I mean, yeah, I don't know, I guess that's why I'm stuck with this thing, and I would agree that we should let, you know, not to kick the can down the road, but we should let the incoming commission kind of deal with this, but that's where I'm coming from. It's sort of like, I don't know why we would need such a policy, because there are laws around this already, you know, for many, many things related to Brown Act violations and, you know, other ordinances, so that's just kind of where I'm coming from.
Commissioner Long.
I would simply note that this is, I think, good common sense feedback from legal counsel on this issue that has been the subject of some controversy and dispute over the last several years. And whether a policy is adopted or not, I think it's a good primer and a good guide for the future as well as to reflect upon the past. Thank you very much for your service.
I have a comment.
Please.
So just to refresh everybody's memory here, it was President Paravano who requested this, or made the motion initially to task our attorney with coming up with some sort of recommendations, which then somehow got translated by our attorney into coming up with a policy. And I don't remember that that was specifically requested the first time this came up, but I could be misremembering that. So that was sort of how this whole thing got kicked off. And then we were presented with something, what was that, like a couple meetings ago? When was the last time this came up?
2 meetings.
2 meetings ago. We were presented with miscellaneous information, just basically telling the board they could go this way or that way. Do you want to refresh my memory on how that went two meetings ago?
I provided you 2 meetings ago with the same policy that you are presented with now, except for the bracketed sections in A through C and section B in its entirety. And those new sections were added this time, as I understood Commissioner Tucker's request.
Because I thought Commissioner Tucker's request was just, I thought what I remembered him saying was that he just needed more information before he could make a decision. But I don't remember him saying that he needed a policy or he needed more specific policy language. So be that as it may, what's interesting about this to me is that apparently this seemed like a really good idea back when the board thought that the election might go differently than it did. And there was interest in censuring one commissioner, specifically me. And then when the election went a different way, suddenly there's a complete lack of interest in moving forward with this policy. And one could only surmise that that might be because Commissioner Bernardo and Commissioner Paravano are concerned that this might not be in their best interest. So I'm just pointing that out, and I'm concerned that we've wasted time, we've wasted our legal counsel's time, we've paid our counsel money to create this policy, which was bogus from the start and completely unnecessary, which I already pointed out. And I'm, a little frustrated about it, but that's all I have to say about it. Thank you.
My comments are that as public officials, we take the issue of confidentiality extremely seriously. And we are held accountable for every single document, every single conversation that is labeled confidentiality or confidential. Any deterrent from that shows a weakness in our behavior as public officials. And as president of this board, of this Harbor Commission, I want to make sure that each commissioner follows the ethical conduct put out by the Fair Political Practice Commission. And with this, with this document, or this policy that was returned to us for our review, states exactly that we as public officials are held way above any other conversation, any other type of activity that is deemed public. It is inherent in our duties as public officials, and as in our responsibility for our district council to operate on a confidential basis. I cannot see how we can continue working assuming that there are weaknesses in any type of confidential communications that occurs between the attorney and the client, in this case, the Harbor Commission. So I would hope that this message is heard loud and clear by everyone, and that this can serve as a basis for further discussion, not for going backwards or weakening our code of conduct, ethical conduct, but improving and strengthening it through compliance and accountability.
Mr. President, then I would move that this item be continued to the next regular meeting of the Harbor Commission.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second that this item be continued to the next Harbor Commission meeting. Any discussions, questions? Roll call, please.
Commissioner Bernardo?
Aye.
Commissioner Brennan?
No.
Commissioner Holsinger?
Aye.
Commissioner Tucker?
Aye.
President Romano?
Aye. The motion carries. Okay, at this time, we have an urgency item that will be presented by Commissioner Bernardo.
Yes, it's been brought to my attention that there's a need to take immediate action regarding adding contractors' pollution liability insurance coverage for the district as required by the State Abandoned Vessel Abatement Fund Grant Program and adoption of Resolution 36-14 to amend the fiscal year 2014-15 budget to add $5,660, and that the need for action came to the attention of the district subsequent to the agenda being posted and too late to meet the 72-hour posting requirement. That's my motion.
I would second the motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to add this urgency item to the agenda. Any questions, discussion? Roll call, please.
I have a question.
Please. Oh, just to add it to the agenda.
Oh, okay.
There's still a
And if I-
question?
Before the roll call, if I could just say that under the Brown Act, you need 4 votes to pass this motion.
For putting on the agenda.
Correct.
Roll call, please.
Commissioner Bernardo?
Aye.
Commissioner Brennan?
Aye.
Commissioner Holsinger?
Aye.
Commissioner Tucker?
Aye.
President Romano?
Aye. So now we have a motion, an agenda item. Okay.
They received a state abandoned vessel abatement fund, and they have changed some of the requirements for the policies that we are required to have as far as insurance compliance goes. I guess the state has had this for a while, but they're just now actually requiring everybody to get it. So as part of receiving the grant from the state for, I just put the amount on here, $143,800, we have to include this pollution liability portion. And while we did have in our insurance policy, we have a bumper policy for some portion of pollution liability, it wasn't enough to cover what is needed in this. So we received a quote from our insurance company, and it is for the $5,660. And I sent all of the information that was needed by the state to our insurance, and they made sure that everything was complying. So this is what they can say.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve this. Questions, discussion?
I have a question. So in what instance would we use this insurance, just so we understand exactly what it's for?
Well, let's say that somebody was coming to remove a boat from the harbor to break it up or do whatever, and
Did our old policy cover that at all?
Our old policy does cover it, but not to the, it has a limit. And this is I think a $1 million requirement. And our old policy didn't include, had a limit on the cleanup, and the state wants a higher amount for the cleanup.
Okay. So, for example, the boat that just sank, what was that, today or yesterday?
Or
Today?
last night sometime. Yeah.
Last
Yeah.
night, it sounds like there wasn't an issue with the oil spill or
I'm
fuel.
sorry, I was coughing. when you said
Oh, it sounded like there wasn't a problem with the fuel spill,
that. No.
but if
It's
there
like
had
change
been,
of the
If there had
fuels.
been,
Yeah.
yeah.
Or if there would, I think it's more related to a contractor though.
Right.
Like, let's say a contractor says he has everything, proves he has everything, but then fails to have everything, it covers this as well.
what does that mean though? A
Well,
con-
let's say a contractor who's doing the disposal
Oh,
had, provides us all the documentation required, but then maybe during the time that he was doing the work, his policy was canceled, we did not know it. Because he may have given us all the bids and the paperwork 2 weeks ago, it was canceled from some other product
so,
by his insurance company. This would at least protect us.
so you mean a contractor, like if you hired somebody to dispose of a boat
Correct.
and then there was a spill during the disposal
Exactly.
process? Okay, got it.
Exactly. And that's why the grant pays for the removal of these boats, so that they're protecting themselves too.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor to adopt resolution 3614 to amend the district's budget to add $5,660 to cover additional contractors' pollution liability insurance coverage for the district as required by the state abandoned vessel abatement fund this year. Okay, roll call, please.
Commissioner Morado?
Aye.
Commissioner Brennan?
Aye.
Commissioner Holsinger?
Aye.
Commissioner Tucker?
Aye.
Commissioner Vaughn?
Aye. Motion carries. Okay, now we have staff reports, starting with general manager.
Yes, you have my written report. I'll take any questions on that.
I have a question.
Please.
Yeah. At the last meeting, we had a request for an informational report that was passed by the board regarding unauthorized access to and use of electricity at the end of Johnson Pier by one or more tenants. That's not on the reports of any of the staff here, and I would like to have at least a verbal report on what was found so that we can get that out to the public. And I don't know whether that would be in your report, Mr. Grinnell, or in another staff member's report.
I will give you a brief oral report, and Mr. Grindy can supplement that as needed. Basically, the staff had undertaken a review of electricity use at all the marine, well, both of the harbor facilities, kind of a routine check and so on, and it was discovered that at Pillar Point on Johnson Pier, there appeared to be higher.
Is this on the agenda?
No, this is in my general manager's report. It's an oral presentation.
It seems like we're getting off topic.
No, it's part of my general
I'm
manager's
asking our
report.
attorney.
I think it's a fair comment. I think it's within the scope of the general manager and answering a question, but I think it's a fair comment that if you start getting into a real merit, discussion of the substance of this issue, it probably should be agendized so the public knows.
Because it
Correct.
It was asked for an agenda item, but it's not on here, right, as an agenda item?
No, it's not. I felt that all that was needed at this time, consistent with what council says, is a very brief oral statement that, in fact, this was part of a routine survey, and it was looked into, and we are in the process of resolving whatever needs to be resolved. And there will be a definite report back on that at some point in the future when we've done it. That's all we have to say at this time.
Was there a particular tenant that was found to be accessing district electricity?
Is this I think we're going over the line here with this not being agendized.
I'll defer to council on that.
It's an unanswerable question. It's a simple question with a simple answer. I think it's certainly within the
But
realm
that-
of the general manager report.
There hasn't been an opportunity for that tenant to be noticed, to be here to speak on their behalf. because it is not on the agenda.
I agree, but what I've heard so far is a general manager's report that there is an issue that is being looked into and will be brought back for a report, and a simple question about which tenant is this issue about. So it doesn't seem to me that the public or the tenant's rights are negatively impacted by simply identifying the tenant.
So it's Pillar Point Seafood.
Okay. I have a question of legal counsel then. If a tenant is found to have accessed electricity at the expense of the district without authorization, is that a violation of their lease?
This is really getting into
Now,
a
now I
big
think I
discussion.
agree with Commissioner Brennan that perhaps a substantive discussion of the lease provisions and what almost presupposes a report that's been identified as preliminary in nature.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question. This was supposed to appear on this evening's agenda by motion passed by this body, and it does not appear on the agenda. Can I assume that it'll appear on the next meeting's agenda? Or do you need a new motion for that at the appropriate time? Anybody.
I don't, you do not need another motion. There was a motion to put this item on the agenda. It should get on the agenda without the need for a second repeat vote.
Well, then let me ask staff.
Yeah, if I
Can
might
it be on
comment.
the agenda for the next
Yeah,
regular meeting of this body?
Yeah, basically, we didn't put it on because we felt it wasn't ready. I mean, all that could be said at this point is what I've said. Now, I'll defer to Mr. Grindy about the status of the inquiry relative to whether it would be available for the next board meeting, as Commissioner Tucker
I
referred.
can put it on the agenda as an informational item next month.
Would that come with a report so my colleagues could make a determination?
I'd just like to point out, Commissioner Tucker, in case you've forgotten, you're not going to be at the next meeting.
Okay,
Oh, I'm
we
so
have,
sorry for that. I don't know what I'm gonna do with my Wednesday nights now.
Mr. Grinnell, are you finished?
Yes, I am.
Yeah.
Thank you for your time and patience, Mr. President.
That was Acting General Manager Scott Gridney.
You have my report, I'll take any questions. And I have a couple highlights. One of the highlights was the RCD report. They're originally looking at January, but they've asked us to bring it to the board in February due to staff availability from RCD. There'll be a presentation of what they found so far this year. And also just another item that is attached to my report, you'll notice that the South San Francisco Oyster Point Marina Ferry ridership is now over 10,000 a month. And they have actually moved to where they're ordering new boats that are larger. So it's moving up. There's no strike going on, so it's going up, and that's a good sign.
Good deal.
And their numbers were larger than when the strike was in place with Bart.
I believe so.
Yeah. That's great. Is there anything you report about electricity?
Okay, we have a written report from Director of Finance. Next is Ms. Harris.
You have my report, I'll take any questions. I'll take any questions for the finance director or Mr. Gales.
I have a question. This is just about increasing costs when it comes to liability with regards to medical. I know, where I work at the Port of Oakland, we're public employees, and every year the costs that the port has to pay, it seems to be increasing by double digits. Is that the same for the Harbor District in terms of?
We were just talking about that today. I think they've gone up minimally in the last 3 or 4 years. It's kind of surprising. I think we have our coverage through operating engineers and teams, and I believe that because both of those unions are so large that they're able to
Brings
spread
down
it,
the-
brings down
Brings down the cost. I was just curious. I don't need a report. Thank you. I just was curious.
Yeah, I believe this year the report, the rates didn't go up that much. Last year we saw, I'd say a decent increase, but this year there wasn't much of an effect.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. That's it.
Okay.
And just FYI, I think the plans was that in my next report, I was gonna put some of the things that we need to pre-think for next fiscal year, for this coming year.
Great.
Any news about Wi-Fi?
No, they're working on some other Comcast coming in, and they did finish their thing, so server issues, so I'll put it, we're having a meeting with IT.
Thank you.
Okay, next we have a report from operations. We can start with Oyster Point.
The other thing I could bring up, the St. Veronica's run was a big success. They had a great time, even though it rained. Good turnout and a couple hundred runners, and so enjoy it, and they'll be back next year. So that's the only thing I could add on the written part.
And moving over to Pillar Point.
You have my written report. The only thing I need to add is we had 4 vessels in the storm. One went up on the beach. We're gonna try to get it off tomorrow. It's not compromised. Three others drug anchor. Other than that, just been busy with the crowd sales and the weather.
Could you remind us about the light boat, the boat lighting and some of the
The
things
boat
going on
lighting
for the
at
holidays?
Pillar Point is the second Saturday in December.
12, 13, 14.
And then on the
Oyster Point
is this Saturday,
And what time do those?
6 o'clock.
Both
Six-
of them.
6 o'clock.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
It'll be the first time for Oyster Point.
Yeah.
But it's, it should be fun. We have 2 choirs coming from South City Schools, the Elks Band, Santa, and Hot Chocolate.
All right.
So, and we're using the ferry.
Chestnuts.
Yeah,
And we're using the ferry building for the first time.
Oh, that's really
Stay warm
yeah.
Or dry, depending on the situation.
Yeah.
and dry.
Okay. Moving on to commissioner reports. Commissioner statements and requests. Commissioner Brennan,
I don't have any.
no statements. Okay, Commissioner Bernardo.
Yeah, I would just like to say something very briefly. I'd like to thank Mr. Grinnell for his years of service and dedication to the district. I know that he has seen some really remarkable and extraordinary successes, as well as a lot of challenges over those years, and I just want to thank him for staying at the helm and really, keeping the district on course. And also, I want to thank Harbor Master, Acting General Manager Grindy for keeping us steady as well during this transition time, because transitions are never easy. I myself, in working at the Port of Oakland, I've been through, in my 12 years, 4 executive directors already. And each transition requires a lot of work, and I know how jarring it can be for staff, and even for 27. We have 475, you have 27, and it can be very jarring. So I just want to thank everyone, including, everyone on staff too. So special thanks. And on the same note, I would like to look forward to working with the 2 new commissioners, Commissioner-elect David and Commissioner-elect Matoush. And also I'd like to thank outgoing commissioners Holtzinger and Tucker for their years of service here to the district. It's been a pleasure working with both of you. Thank you. That's all I want to say.
Commissioner Tucker.
Thank you, Mr. President. It's been brought to my attention that I will not be at the next Board of Harbor Commissioners meeting. So I assume this is my last commission meeting then. Let me just say a few words, if I may. I was asked to apply for this position in 1998 to fill a vacancy of someone who left unexpectedly. and I was glad to do that, be of service. And in joining it, I felt that I really enjoyed the work of the Harbor Commission. No way in the world did I fathom at all spending 16 years with you folks. But I must say that it certainly is time to go, but I've thoroughly enjoyed my time on the Harbor Commission. So much has been accomplished. When I first got here, we were over $19 million in debt to the state of California for money borrowed for infrastructure improvements. Today, 16 years later, we're down to $5.8 million debt. That's fantastic. And you heard the auditor talk about $10 million. Well, he didn't include about $4 million in earmarked assets that we have for other things like building or D-bond, places like that. We fully funded the retirement, or I should say the exit funding for the employees that leave the district. We are in so much better shape today than we were when I first got here. And I think this is probably one of the better years overall. The ferry service, everything is just going along very, very well. We're very excited about all of that. I want to thank Peter Grinnell also. Peter, I guess, precedes me by about 6 or 8 months. And it's been a real learning experience. I came here thinking I had some city council experience and that I could, work easily here. But I found that was not the case. There's a lot of intricacies in commission work here at the harbor, a lot to be learned. And I've enjoyed, believe me, almost every minute of it. It's been a pleasure to work with you, and I wish you speedy retirement. But I'm sure that if my colleagues are wise, they'll be calling you for consultation. Scott, I only know you a short period of time. You've done yeoman's work under difficult conditions. Our harbor masters now, that are both harbor masters, I would wish you nothing but the best. I know you're both getting close to retirement. I would hope you could be harbor commissioners all the way through, harbor masters rather, all the way through to your retirement. But we'll see what happens with that. And I want to thank everybody that's taken the time to always support me and vote for me. I have no ill feelings. I have no second thoughts. I welcome the new commissioners. I wish you nothing but the very best. One I know somewhat well, one I don't know, but I'm sure with the people's voice, you'll both do fine work up here. And I look forward to your work. As a matter of fact, I guess as I unwind, I'm going to have to want to subscribe to Pacific TV so that I can see what's going on with what legacy, not you, Mr. Olam, what legacy I leave here. But again, it's been a pleasure, and I thank you all so much, very much for your support over the years. Thank you.
Commissioner Holzinger.
Well, I would just say I'm grateful for the opportunity to have been of service. I think that's the highest calling any of us can aspire to, and simply wish the new commission all the best in serving the public and the public's trust. And I appreciate all the staff that I've had a chance to work with over these last 3 years, and I wish the staff going forward the very best in continuing to serve the public in the way that you do so well. And I also want to wish Peter Grinnell the very best. Thank you.
Mr. President, is this the time when we add items to the next agenda?
No, we can, but I have,
No, I'm only tongue in cheek, I'm only kidding.
I also would like to make several statements. One, it seems like we're at the evening of, at least recently in this short time, that we're giving thanks. And we celebrated Thanksgiving just less than a week ago. So I'd like to continue giving thanks in that spirit. I would like to thank outgoing General Manager Peter Grinnell for his dedication to the Harbor District, to our community, both, which is a very diverse community, a Bayside community and an Oceanside community. And both provide many challenges, many opportunities, and having known you since your Coastal Conservancy days, I am a firm believer that you have continued to expand the need for education on both San Francisco Bay and the Pacific Ocean issues. And to that end, I feel like your tenure here as General Manager has really produced 2 harbors that have become destination points on the map. We see Oyster Point is growing with the ferry terminal and with the great maintenance staff that I think is still out in the foyer out there. But also, here on the coast side of Pillar Point Harbor, I think the exposure that we have seen in terms of a tourist destination and opportunities for fishermen, both recreational and commercial, to benefit from the resources that I know you have done a lot to protect and sustain over the years through your work through the National Marine, Gulf of Carolina National Marine Sanctuary. So there's a lot of moving parts that you leave here and you've established here because of your experience and your vision. And I personally would like to thank you for leaving us with a great opportunity, with an opportunity for many, many people, many adults as well as children that come here and are awed by the bounty of the sea, by the beauty of the shorebirds, of the surf, of the mammals, of the people that make up our communities. These are part of things that I will always remember you as being connected to. Also, would like to thank outgoing Commissioner Tucker and Holziger for their years of service to the Harbor District. I believe that they have given their all in terms of making smooth sails for both Oyster Point and Pillar Point. And I would like to thank you for your years of public service. And I know you brought a lot of experience to the commission and to the district. And also, I would like to thank Commissioners David and Mateusz for willing to serve on this Harbor Commission. I believe that your experiences and your expertise will do a lot for the Harbor Commission. And as we move forward and facing the challenges of a lot of working waterfronts, whether you're on the bay side or on the ocean side, there are many, many challenges that we face. And together, we can do a much better job. But also, I think more important, I'd like to end my comments. I apologize for taking a little bit too long expressing my Thanksgiving. This is what I did at our Thanksgiving table. But this Thanksgiving was very special for me. And it goes back to 20 years ago, November 27th, 1994, when this harbor was rocked by the loss of 4 commercial fishermen who sunk in 2 fishing boats. And you know, these are things that remind us of the difficulties, of the challenges that face our communities. And the idea that we can rally behind what we do and who we are as humans and what we do is so important in bringing the positive face to the Harbor District. An event like that brought everybody together. I remember I was president of the local association at the time, and I was devastated on how to respond to such an event. How do you bring a community together in memorializing 4 fishermen that lost their lives and have this recognition by a larger community that appreciates their work? So we will be facing with challenges. We'll be faced with a lot of losses. We're going to be faced with a lot of wins. The combinations of these offer the balance that brings us on the right course, on the correct course for all of us as we venture forth. Now that we have a new commission, but we still have Oyster Point and Pillar Point, which are, as I said before, the truly fine places to work out of, to enjoy, to relax, and to appreciate. We can offer a connection for what we do in whatever capacity that we are involved with the Harbor District, either Oyster Point or Pillar Point. We've done our job. We've done our job very well if we can say, please come down and experience the resources that these 2 harbors offer. So that's was my Thanksgiving, and I appreciate this evening of giving thanks to everyone for the work that they've done. There's a transition period, and for the fellow commissioners that are coming on board. So I guess I have one more thing to do. And it is customary to present to outgoing commissioners that have served as president of the commission with a gavel and a plaque. So this is a reminder that on Wednesday nights, you will have something to do. So here you go, Commissioner Tucker. This is for you.
Thank you. I'm glad it didn't have to come to a vote. I've said enough. Thank you. Thank you all.
All right. I'm going to adjourn to a closed session. Motion to adjourn to closed session? I guess you first have to.
No, wait. Item number 7, and before we go into closed session, I have speaker slips. Item number 17, I designate negotiators Peter Grinnell, Jan Gray, Barbara LeVay, and Scott Grindy. And we have 6 speakers. Ms. Jane Frey Silver. And again, you have 3 minutes to talk, and the Deputy Secretary will let you know 30 seconds prior.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
My name is Jane Frey Silver. Thank you for letting me come and speak. I've had the pleasure of living in El Granada for 26 years, and I just wanted to speak briefly about the possibility of a community center in El Granada. There was a brochure that came out recently that said the people of El Granada met at the post office. That really isn't true. We don't meet at the post office. We only greet each other there. We don't have a place to meet.
Could you speak just a little bit louder?
Sure.
Okay.
A community center is a place where bonds are built, and the strength of the community is nurtured in a community center. My father once told me that in the 40s, when he grew up, the boys didn't get in trouble because there were enough retired people around that taught them how to fix cars and so forth. My father went on to fix airplanes, and he worked in the Navy. So it's not only a win for the community, it's a win for the nation when we support people with these cross-generational opportunities. I grew up in Cupertino, where there was no town center. They're still working at trying to create a town center. And unlike Stephen Jobs and Steve Wozniak, who made the most of staying in the garage, my girlfriends and I listened to Beatles music, and some of my girlfriends, who could only be described as really, really, really good girls, got in really, really, really big trouble because there was nothing to do and no place to go. A community center can provide for the young people and the elderly to get together and get to know each other and support each other. When I went to school at UC Santa Cruz, my landlord was Chuck Abbott. I don't know if you know him, but he knew all of the master craftsmen in Santa Cruz that knew how to fix stained glass and knew how to lay bricks in circular patterns. And he got those craftsmen together with the students, and he said we wouldn't have been able to afford to redo the mall if it wasn't for that cross-generational effort. So the last thing I wanted to say is that, there's small wins when we know each other, like teenagers getting jobs for people who may be disabled, elderly getting some food delivered by someone unemployed, getting some employment. Those are small wins, but the bigger wins of having the kind of community support of knowing each other is if we have an earthquake or a tsunami or other disaster, we're going to need to depend on each other for food and water and shelter and clothing. And if we know each other and we have those trust bonds built, it's going to be easier for us as a community. And lastly, I just wanted to address the culture, the underground culture of El Granada. Right now, you can take any kind of class you want in El Granada. There's plant identification, art, children's classes, shamanism, whatever you want to take, but it's all underground. It's being taught in people's homes. What I'm hearing from those teachers is we can no longer afford $3,500 a month for rent. We need to move to cottages. So we can't offer these shoestring classes anymore. That's part of our culture. If we had a community center, we could bring our culture out to the top. The best place is next to the post office. Thank you.
Next, we have Mr. Michael Ferrara. Mr. Ferrara, the policy, we have 3 minutes to talk, and the Deputy Secretary will let you know 30 seconds prior.
Do my best not to use all 3. I'm Mike Ferrara. I'm here speaking tonight on behalf of the Sierra Club, the Loma Prieta chapter. We're longtime supporters of Coastal Access, and we've had a great interest in the success of this district, the fire district, and the new Granada Community Services District. Regarding this property, it is our great preference that a public use be given to this property. It's in public ownership now. We would like to see it go to at least one of the agencies that is vying for it. Both have very valid uses for it that would be a great benefit to the community, and we just hope that you take that into consideration when you're making your decision tonight. Thank you.
Okay, next we have Mr. Anthony Basso.
Good evening. Thank you for allowing me this minute to speak to you guys. I think that you guys are in a tough, the board here is in a bit of a tough situation. You want to get the most you can for that property. But on top of what the last two speakers have said, I would hope that your interest in serving the community may help you choose a more public use for that property that will be a great benefit to that community. And I haven't seen the numbers of the offers from these potential buyers, but you know, in the event one of them isn't necessarily the highest bid, but is offering the best use for the community, I'd like you to factor that in. That's all.
Next, Mr. Dan Haggerty.
I'd like to submit petition 1,400, I'm sorry, 414 community members that have put their name towards a particular plan for the post office lot, which is essentially an open town plaza with a community building. I'd like to go ahead and read the petition. We, the undersigned citizens, feel strongly that the best and most appropriate use of the entire post office lot is for public recreation and enjoyment by the community, including a community services district multi-purpose building for the district office and a meeting room, a children's play area away from the streets, a public plaza, community parking, and the potential to eventually become a community center building if the community wants it. We therefore request and urge the Board of Granada Community Services District to make every effort to acquire the property, request that the Harbor Commission to sell the property only to the Granada Community Services District at the asking price, and a request that the Fire District drop all consideration of building a replacement El Granada Fire Station on this property, instead build at another location or rebuild at the existing site, which has recently been done twice in the city of San Mateo. So I just want to reiterate that this petition took very little effort. There's no website or online petitioning. I expect as the months go further that the number will continue to go up. It is important to note that the Granada Community Services District is the only agency that would have the ability to maximize the complete public benefit through any development. An open town plaza center for the C1 zone would be an inviting space for everyone to use. Because Granada Community Services District has Parks Towers, they can fully utilize the very restricted EG portion of the property with an added community center and future parking for the mid-coast. Based on the input the county's received, County Parks recently said one of the highest community needs assessment is a community center. This location at the post office lot area would be ideal based on the central coastside location. Also, there's been consistently a reminder to this board that the Granada Community Services District is interested in this property. Additionally, state law favors government surplus land to go to parks, and each council member here should know and be aware of this fact. Speaking for myself and Lenny Schultz, another local community leader, we will both advocate and support that the Granada Community Services District project hires union workers. The fire district will get my support and communities, I'm speaking for myself, my support with getting whatever they need at their existing location or another location, but not Portola Avenue and Obispo Road corner. This commission is not bound to take the highest offer, but should favor a buyer that would provide the maximum long-term public benefit to the community and the county. On behalf of the 414 on the petition and myself, please allow for the Granada Community Services to acquire the property. Thank you very much for your time, and thank you for your service, Commissioner Tucker, Singer, and look forward to a new year. Thank you.
Okay, next we have Michael, and I apologize, C-A-D-I-G-A-N?
Yes, it's
Gatkins. Thank you. Please come forward.
Good evening, Commissioners and staff of the Harbor District. I also want to speak in support of the Granada Community Service District acquiring the piece of property that's right down the street from where I live. I've been a Granada resident and homeowner for 22 years. The lot isn't a vacant lot that was donated to the district 53 years ago in the middle of Princeton. It's not surrounded by RVs and boats and light industry. It is the hub of El Granada, what little downtown we have. And the other speakers have spoken quite eloquently about how wonderful a community center could be, how useful it could be, how utilitarian it could be for classes, for meetings. So I support that. I believe that you will act in the best interests of the community benefit for the community of El Granada and the coast side in general in accepting that proposal. Thank you.
Next we have Ms. Fran Pollard.
Good evening, Commissioners. Thank you. You've heard it all. I agree with what everybody else just said. We don't have to repeat everything. So just want to say that I hope you will take into consideration the community's needs and consider them. Consider the community above everything else, and our needs. We asked you before if you would postpone this until after the new commission sits, but and so that the Granada Community Service District would have an opportunity to bid. And in the reason they didn't come earlier is because we were busy on a campaign to get them, the Granada Sanitary District, converted to a community services district, so they now have park powers, and that's the number one choice that's supposed to be considered when you hand over surplus property. It's supposed to go, number one is park services, and now we have that, and now we can bid for that, and now we want it. And I have just a short statement to read. This is for Commissioner Paravano. A group of us have been thinking about this for a while, and we got together and came up with a statement, so I'm just going to read it. It's a short statement. Commissioner Paravano, I believe that you must recuse yourself from any further participation in the decision regarding selling the Harbor District surplus El Granada property. You are a wholesale fish buyer. One of the bidders for the property is a seafood wholesaler. Since it could benefit you to have a new wholesaler competing for your business, you have a potential financial interest and therefore are disqualified under the Fair Political Practices Act. As you know, the penalties for violations are severe, and if I were in this position, I would not risk it. While you may turn to agency counsel for advice on this, the fact that the agency counsel advised that it was not a conflict cannot be used as a defense. An official such as you must hire their own independent counsel for such purposes. That's it. Thank you very much for consideration.
Next, our last speaker, we have Mr. Tom Matoush.
Good evening, Commissioners. I would urge you to defer the decision on a sale on this property. I've heard of potentially 3 buyers, and I'm not really sure that we've had time to do due diligence. If due diligence has been performed, it hasn't been noticed to the public. When we talk about the seafood processor, what is your legacy going to be if you decide to sell the property tonight? And you've got somebody who changes their business and tries to leave other people saddled with debt, loses lawsuits to get out of responsibilities. I'm not sure if that would be the highest serving purpose here. The fire department wants it. The community seems to want the sanitary district to get it. You know, the one thing I'm not hearing from the realtors, I'm not hearing from any of the buyers, nobody's come up with a plan and said, look, this is what we'd like to do with it. We've got 3 people who want to buy a piece of property, and we don't know what anybody's really going to do. Give these people time to talk to the buyers and say to the seafood person, to the fire, everybody, says, what are your plans? How are you going to impact the community? How are you going to make the people in the harbor proud that you purchased this property and developed it? I really don't think on this short notice, the property was given to the harbor in 1953. What is the rush on making a decision tonight? The property's not going away. Frankly, we wouldn't care if the buyers went away because there will be other buyers. This is land, it's oceanfront, it can only grow in value. So please defer the idea of making a decision tonight. Wait till the commission hears some plans from the buyers and how that will impact the community.
I'll move to go into closed session.
Do you have a second? Second. We have a motion and second to go into closed session. Questions, comments? Roll call, please.
Commissioner Gerardo?
Aye.
Commissioner Brennan? Commissioner Holsinger?
Aye.
Commissioner Tucker?
Aye.
President Fairwell?
Aye. We are in closed session. Yeah. Pietro, 5 minutes or 10 minutes?
Yeah,
5 minutes.
Yes.
Okay, we're on. So we're back into open session. I'd like to ask Mr. Miller to give us a synopsis of what happened.
In closed session held pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.8, that's 54956.8, Board of Harbor Commissioners voted in closed session to approve and execute an agreement to sell the real property identified on the agenda as the post office lot to the Coastside Fire Protection District. The terms of the agreement call for a sale price of $845,000 with a closing date set for no later than 90 days. The board voted as follows. Commissioner Brennan, no. Commissioner Bernardo, no. Commissioner Paravano, yes. Commissioner Tucker, yes. Commissioner Holsinger, yes. This final approval also included authorization to the president of the board to finalize execution of the sale agreement and also authorization to the general manager to sign additional forms and documents necessary to finalize escrow and effectuate the closing consistent with the board's action. There's no other action from the closed session to report out.
Motion to adjourn? Do you have a second?
Second?
Motion to a second. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Gerardo?
Aye.
Commissioner Brennan?
Aye.
Commissioner Holsinger?
Aye.
Commissioner Tucker?
Aye.
President Fairwell?
Aye. The motion, or the meeting is adjourned. Everybody enjoy your holiday season and
Merry Christmas, Happy New Year.
Happy Hanukkah.
Happy Hanukkah.